Hi everybody. Um, I just wanted to talk about some of the parts that are included in dialectical behavior therapy. Sorry about any background noise, there's some kids playing behind me here. Anyways, well, first of all, I just wanted to show you a quick little chart. I'm reading from my book again. So this is a little chart here. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things that are included in dialectical behavior therapy. I'm still waiting to get in. I've been waiting almost a year. It's a long time to get in here, but so let's talk about emotional vulnerability. It involves three things. There's 1, emotional sensitivity, 2, emotional reactivity, and 3, slow return to emotional baseline. These are all obviously from Marsha Linehan, who created DBT. So, emotional sensitivity is the tendency to have an emotional reaction to events that might not affect other people. For instance, if you are a very sensitive person, it might not take much to make you cry while watching a sad movie or even a commercial on TV. Or the smallest expression of annoyance from someone close to you might make you feel like you're being stabbed in the gut. Basically, if you are really emotionally sensitive, you are probably going to react to most things going on around you, including relatively small things that less sensitive people might not even notice, like a glance, a particular tone of voice, and so on. I've always been very sensitive to tone of someone's voice, even if they're not, mad or upset about something. I pick up on the tone and I just kind of go with it. So, emotional reactivity. Being an emotionally reactive person means that when you do react emotionally, you react very strongly. So perhaps more strongly than other people do. Basically, you probably have pretty intense emotions. Therefore, not only do you have emotional reactions to many things going on around you, but your reactions are also probably very strong. Have people ever told you that you're really intense? If so, they could be saying that you're emotionally reactive. And the slow return to emotional baseline is the third part of being emotionally vulnerable. It involves having a hard time coming down once you've experienced an emotional reaction. So a slow return to emotional baseline means that once you feel an emotion, such as anger, it takes a long time for it to go away. For example, if you had an argument with your boss just before you left work and you were feeling angry about it, you would most likely still be feeling angry when you got home and greeted your partner. And then if your partner said something that irked you, you would be that much more likely to react with anger or irritation because you were still feeling angry with your boss. That is a pretty common thing anyways. I mean, I think it's just, part of BPD, but I think it's just a lot more strong. Okay, invalidating environment. This is a big one for me, especially when I was growing up. Okay, I guess we'll just kind of read and see where we go. According to a biosocial theory, people with BPD are not only emotionally vulnerable, but they also grow up in environments where they never learn how to deal with their emotions. Remember that in an invalidating environment, people don't help you learn to deal with your emotions. Instead, they may tell you that you're wrong for feeling your emotions, or they might punish or ignore you when you get emotional. Now, people do not always say these things in words. Sometimes their actions communicate invalidation. Imagine that you're on a bus and a very heavy person steps on your foot and stays there. And you say, "That really hurts." And he says, "Yes, I can see that." But he doesn't do anything to move his foot. That is what sometimes happens in an invalidating environment. Somebody does something that upsets you, you say something about it, but he or she keeps doing it. These are all examples of people in the environment not taking your emotions seriously. Also, as we have mentioned before, simply growing up in a family where everyone seems different from you can be invalidating. Even if no one is telling you there is something wrong with you, you may think there is something wrong with you, like you're the black sheep or an outsider. It can be really painful to think that you are different or more sensitive than other people are, or that you have a harder time coping with your emotions. Finally, as we discussed in Chapter 3, people with BPD often have histories of abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual. These can also be considered parts of an invalidating environment, but it is important to note that even if you haven't been abused, you may still have experienced invalidation from caregivers or others around you. According to the biosocial theory, people with BPD have had many of these experiences while growing up. If you have BPD, you might have also had the experience of people ignoring you, getting angry with you, dismissing you, or rejecting you when you got really emotional. That's the story of my life. As a result, you may have actually started to be afraid of your own emotions. Keep in mind, though, that the combination of emotional vulnerability and environmental invalidation is what leads to BPD. Many people are emotionally vulnerable, but they never develop BPD. Similarly, many people have stressful, invalidating, or even abusive childhoods and never develop it. In this theory, it takes two to tango, so to speak. It is also important to note that in this theory, neither factor is to blame. There is nothing wrong with being an emotional person. In fact, there are many advantages to being more emotional. Sometimes very emotional people are the most interesting, charismatic people in the room. They are passionate about life. They feel others' pain deeply. And they are often very empathetic and sensitive. Similarly, out of no fault of their own, people who are less emotional may not know exactly what to do with a very emotional person, especially a very emotional child, which I definitely was. It's as if this back and forth between the invalidating environment and the emotional child. The child gets really emotional, and the parents or caregivers don't know how to deal with it. So the caregivers may tell the child to stop being so emotional. Not because they want to hurt or upset the child, but simply because they don't know what to do or how to help the child. So what usually happens when someone tells you not to feel what you're feeling, you're likely to feel it even more. What's more, you're likely to get upset or defensive or feel out of control. Now you're even more emotional than you were before, and your caregivers now have even less of an idea of what to do. And they may start feeling out of control themselves, or even upset or angry. Over time, as this happens again and again, emotionally vulnerable people may start to have a lot of difficulty managing their emotions, and they may become afraid of their emotions, find them intolerable, and spend a lot of time trying to avoid them. Indeed, many people with BPD say that they do these things like self-harm and suicide attempts in order to escape their emotions. Drug use, binge eating, and other risky behaviors are also used for that same purpose. People with BPD often use these things in order to feel better in the short term, but of course, all of these behaviors create a whole host of problems in the long term. So, quick little video for you guys. Yeah, that's it. Good night.